Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for the Monday Q&As. And as you guys can see, I have my nose strip on, and I'm going to try to do my best to make it through these videos. I have quite a terrible head cold and sinuses today, and you guys already know I have sinus and inner ear issues, like actual major ones. So I really can't breathe through my nose at all today. This strip isn't even helping, but I'm going to try to make it through these Q&As anyways. So let's get this started. First question. Jason, I briefly remember you spoke about how fiber has an effect on glycogen replenishment, especially in the first meal. Could you go into more details on this? Thanks. I didn't really say that it affects glycogen replenishment. It can under certain circumstances, but what I said is that it slows down absorption of all the carbs and things you eat later in the day, and it affects your glycemic index. You guys have to remember, one of the reasons glycemic index isn't that useful is because it assumes you're completely glycogen fasted and haven't eaten anything else when they take that measurement. Once other food is introduced and you're on your second or third or fourth meal of the day, the glycemic index kind of gets thrown out because of previous meals, and what's already going through your GI tract is still affecting the rate of absorption. And if you eat a high fiber meal for your first meal of the day, it's going to slow the absorption of all the carbs and pretty much everything else you eat for the rest of the day. It's going to lower their absorption rates. And as far as it replenishing glycogen, this isn't a problem unless you're a very serious athlete training multiple times a day, or you are a serious endurance athlete, meaning you're doing over 4 hours of non-stop training in a day. Sure, too much fiber can be a problem for glycogen replenishment because absorption gets too low. It could be a problem there. For most of you, though, your fiber intake's not going to matter. It's really tit for tat. You shouldn't be worried about glycogen replenishment as an absolute priority for any reason unless you're training multiple times a day very, very hard and you're a serious athlete. For just general body composition purposes or low-level athletes, it's not going to matter that much. Just make sure you get enough carbs in after you work out, and as long as you absorb them eventually, as long as your muscle glycogen is restored by the time you train again the next day, doesn't matter. So it's a non-issue for the majority of you out there. For those of you who do have very serious glycogen replenishment considerations, fiber and the timing of your fiber may become a factor. All right, next question. What are the possible situations or contexts in which the body burns muscle, not fat? Now, I'm going to assume you mean net turnover over a 24-hour period or even up to a week, because in all honesty, people seem to forget the human body is a dynamic organism. It has metabolism. Your body is gaining muscle and losing muscle every single day, gaining fat and losing fat both every single day, whether you are bulking or cutting or at maintenance. It's a question of whichever one wins out for the day is how much muscle or fat you gain or lose. Now, a context in which you could start losing muscle tissue without losing fat is generally going to be through detraining. Because if you're in a calorie deficit, you're almost always going to lose some body fat no matter what. Whether you're losing muscle or not, or even gaining muscle, isn't going to change the fact that you are going to lose some body fat. So it means you're not in a calorie deficit and you have detrained, or you've lost some sort of anabolic signaling in your body, such as you've cut your workload or your training weight back. Let's say you've been doing X amount of weight and reps on all your training, and you cut the weight in half by 50%, and you do that for longer than a week or two. You're going to start detraining, or you just quit training completely. Basically, your training workload drops to much lower than is able to stimulate sustaining the current amount of muscle you have. You're going to start losing muscle tissue without losing fat, as long as you're at maintenance calories or higher. Same thing for enhanced lifters, enhanced athletes, people who use anabolic drugs. When you go on those anabolic drugs and you come off, you're going to start losing some muscle tissue. As a result of that, how much is going to depend on a lot of factors, but they'll start losing some muscle tissue. And if they're not in a calorie deficit, they're going to keep all their body fat while losing some muscle tissue. So those are two situations in which you could very easily see that happen. All right, next question. Please address the fact that Simone Panda claims to be all natural, LOL. Yeah, that is LOL. And this is no disrespect to the guy. And people are going to jump up and say, oh, he's shots fired, he's hating. I'm not hating. The guy clearly has good genetics, clearly has a good physique, clearly trains his ass off. I don't think anybody out there is going to disagree with any of those 3 points. So that being said, there's no disrespect there. The guy has every right to make a living. And in order to keep his sponsorships and everything else, because of the way he looks, he's going to have to scream that he's natural over and over and over and over. It's going to be a requirement to make his income and his money for him to do it, and to be aggressively so. Is it possible that he's natty? Let's be realistic here. People need to be realistic about what natural limits are and what the human body is capable of doing, even with hard work and good genetics. Get real, people. If you happen to believe the line that he has to use in order to continue to make a living in his chosen profession, then I have some real estate for sale. I have some oceanfront property in Arizona that I'm letting go for a really good price, so you guys need to talk to me. Alright guys, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.